Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Twilight Zone review. Today it is Season 5, Episode 8, Uncle Simon, written by Rod Serling and starring Cedric Hardwicke as Uncle Simon and Constance Ford as Barbara. And I have to say, this is a perfectly solid Twilight Zone episode with very good acting by both leads. So I'll get right into the episode. We start with Barbara and her Uncle Simon. And I gotta say, these are both pretty crabby, unlikable people in my opinion, but because they're both that way, it kind of works in the episode. And Uncle Simon starts insulting this lady, and I gotta say he's pretty good at it. He comes up with some pretty entertaining stuff, and they just keep talking, and you can tell that they really don't like each other's company that much, and they get around to talking about Uncle Simon's laboratory. Barbara says she wishes she could find out what's going on in there, and he says someday when the time is right you will, which will be significant later in the episode. Then they get into a conversation where Simon asks her why she stays there, and she says because she's waiting for him basically to pass away so she'll be able to enjoy inheriting everything. So wow, so he insults her and kind of takes advantage of her, makes her do things for him, and she's just there to inherit everything. So two pretty unlikable people, I would say. Then we get the opening narration after a really long opening, probably one of the longest, but it's a good setup. So Barbara comes down to the lab as she's being very, very nosy, and Uncle Simon gets really mad about this, and he starts yelling, and they're fighting again, and he gives her more really good insults. I have to say, this guy's a pro at this, and he basically gets so worked up that he raises his cane, and Barbara grabs it, and he falls down the stairs. Now, Barbara doesn't help him. Instead, she lets him lay there, and she insults him, and she yells at him, and this basically causes him to pass away. And then she goes back upstairs and she yells out the window that she's free, I think, and it seems like she's happy to be rid of Uncle Simon, but is she really? Well, we'll find out. So we go to the next scene, and she's talking to a man named Mr. Schwimmer, I believe his name is, about the will. And it turns out she does inherit everything, all of the money, the property, but there's a few conditions. One is that she has to stay there, which she's okay with because she planned on doing that anyway. And the second one is that she has to care for Uncle Simon's experiment, his experiment he's been working on, which Schwimmer and her know nothing about. And if she fails to do this, she'll basically lose everything. So they go down to the lab to figure out what's going on, and they find a mechanical man there, basically a robot, and it talks. And I have to say, this robot's pretty strange looking, but it worked for me in kind of an odd way. So Barbara and the robot basically talk, and the robot says it will learn as it goes, and it will take on more human attributes as time goes on. I wonder how this is, how this works. It would have been nice to get an explanation, but it's not really that important for the episode. Just kind of a detail left out, I guess. So all of a sudden they keep talking and the robot says it wants hot chocolate, which was something that Uncle Simon liked a lot. So we can kind of see what's happening, but I gotta say the twist at the end is still pretty satisfying. So Barbara goes downstairs in the next scene, and the robot is starting to get on her nerves. It's starting to act exactly like Uncle Simon did. And she actually starts literally hearing Uncle Simon's voice in her head, which was pretty funny. So Barbara basically pushes the robot, just like Uncle Simon fell down the stairs. So we go to the final scene with where Schwimmer comes by because he's supposed to go there and check every week to make sure she's doing what she's supposed to. And we find out that the robot has a bad leg, which is just like Uncle Simon did. That's what he needed the cane for. So now the robot is basically like Uncle Simon physically and mentally. And it just ends where the robot is talking exactly like Uncle Simon in his voice and everything. So I guess Uncle Simon gets the last laugh. Like I said, neither character's very likable, but because it's kind of a two-way street, it works for me. And the end of this episode, I gotta admit, I did chuckle how Uncle Simon pretty much outsmarted Barbara. It was satisfying for me. So overall, I give Uncle Simon a 3 out of 5. It's not one of the all-time great episodes, but I thought it was fast enough moving and entertaining for what it was. I would recommend checking it out at least once. So a 3 out of 5 for Uncle Simon, and as always, thanks very much for watching.